If you've never heard about the allegory of Plato's cave, then you're in for a treat. Let me explain to you about this allegory from Plato, the Greek philosopher. It goes like this. So imagine as humans locked up inside a cave from birth, chained up from their feet, their hands and their neck, so they can't move and they can't even turn their heads. All they can see is the wall in front of them. Behind them there's a fire, and the humans holding them captive will often hold up statues and cutouts of trees and animals and humans and things that would exist in the real world. They would often talk whilst doing so. The prisoners have only ever seen those shadows cast on the wall in front of them. They've also only heard the voices bouncing off the wall in front of them, so they come to believe that that is the truth of life, the only truth. Now, imagine then, eventually one of these men is freed from the cave. He turns his head and he sees the fire, he sees the humans projecting the statues, and he realizes that maybe this isn't the actual truth. As he turns again, he sees the entrance of the cave with light shining through, so he makes his way towards it. As he leaves the cave, he is then out in the world. He has the sunlight in his eyes and he struggles to adapt, of course, as you would if you'd lived in darkness your whole life. But over time, his eyes do start to adapt. He starts to get used to it, and then he sees the real trees, real humans, real grass, real sky, and even the sun, at which point he can realize that that is the true source of life. Now, after a while of enjoying these things, he remembers his fellow prisoners, so he makes his way back to the cave. As he goes back to the cave, his eyes struggle to adapt again to the darkness, and he's trying to explain to his fellow prisoners about the truth that he's seen outside of the cave. But the prisoners believe that his journey has in fact harmed his vision, and he's the one who is fooled and has been tricked into believing there's something else. And as he tries to free them, they fight against him and even try to kill him. Now that's the end of the allegory. But let me break down the points and what it represents. The cave itself is the world that most people live in, the world of illusions, the world of propaganda, let's say. Now, the entrance of the cave is seeking out truth, seeking out wisdom, and then the sun itself is, and the real world outside the cave is, of course, the real world as it really exists. The journey back to the cave by the man who was freed represents the duty that we have as humans once we find out the truth. Now, what that can do once you've found out the truth for yourself, once you're no longer fooled by the propaganda and the illusions that are put onto us and the indoctrinations that maybe we are given in school and through medias, the duty that we have is to tell other people, to help them make their way towards the edge of the cave themselves and have a look for themselves. But most people don't like to be proven to have been fooled their whole life, deceived. Even when they might have an inkling that they have been, it's much harder for them to admit and see for themselves that they have, especially if somebody else has told them they want to be the ones to have discovered it. Now, that journey, that duty of the prisoner who left the cave and went back to tell his fellow prisoners, that can be a lonely one, as shown in the allegory. When he tried to free them, they fought against him. Now, I'm sure if you're watching these kind of videos, you can quite relate to the man who was freed from the cave. Maybe you've always had an understanding of life and how it's really worked, but the people around you haven't as much, and they happily go along with the status quo and the world of illusions, and they don't want to leave the cave. And as I say, it can be quite a lonely journey then, but it is a duty that we have, and we find ourselves trying to, help people and coerce them to walk towards the edge of the cave to see for themselves. Now, regarding this particular allegory, if you look at the Bible, it also talks about something similar. In Paul, the letters of Paul, which come after the Gospels in the Bible, he says that you cannot bring people towards the edge of the cave. He doesn't talk about the cave itself because, of course, He's not talking about the allegory, but he does in his own terms, and as we're using the allegory, let's continue using that metaphor. So he says that you can't bring people to the edge of the cave. As we know, they'll fight against you. What we can do is we can get our knowledge and wisdom and vocabulary and charisma to a certain point, so that we can plant seeds in their head so that they can make their own way towards the cave. When people discover for themselves the world, then they're much more inclined to step outside. If tried to be forced by someone else, it seems to be human nature that we repel against that. And if you're feeling maybe alone, even when you're with friends and family, it's probably because you're the man who is freed from the cave. Now, we can find some resolve in this, because maybe that journey is a lonely journey, but the resolve we can find is that there's purpose in it. We know there's value and purpose in bringing people outside the cave so we can see the world for what it is. If only everybody did, then the world, what a beautiful place it really would be. So as you are trying to search out wisdom and become the best version of yourself that you can be in life, understand that it's for a greater purpose. It's not just for you, but it's so that you can help others come towards the edge of the cave for themselves. Now look, if you do enjoy this sort of content, I do plan to keep on going. So look, I'm going to keep making videos, I'm going to keep posting, and I'd love some interaction and some feedback. So look, if you're happy and you'd like to subscribe, I'd be much appreciated. I've never asked that before. It sounds weird just saying those words, but here we are on a journey. Thanks.